This edition of the Ridley Report is brought to you by
freekeen.com.
Back in the mid-90s, I did something from Kansas that might be worth doing in New Hampshire too, if it's still allowed. I went to a local medical charity, collected their non-narcotic surplus medication, and shipped it to eastern Croatia. A hospital then took it and distributed it near the Bosnian front lines. Now, this was way more helpful and effective than anything I did while I was inside the country. There was some sort of a loophole, or at least a temporary change in the law, that allowed folks to use, or hospitals to distribute expired medication for 6 months after it expired, and for average people to ship it. Most medication, contrary to popular belief, is not really entirely perishable, and very few types of medication are actually harmful past their expiration date, with the exception of tetracycline. At least that was the case back in the 90s. So you had all this medication piling up around the U.S., particularly at this one charity in Wichita, that was nearing its expiration date without having been used. Well, they had to pitch it all. It was much better off sent to Bosnia, where it was hopefully used for good purposes. Now, there's only so much bad stuff you can do with heart medication. Shipments only cost, probably $35 a piece, and we were talking 30 or 40 pounds of medication each. It must have been tens of thousands of dollars worth of medication by the time I had sent 10 or 12 shipments. Anyway, it occurred to me that something similar could be done from New Hampshire, and medications perhaps sent to Somalia or Iraq or somewhere like that. The goal, of course, when I used to send medicines to Bosnia, the goal was to alleviate the suffering caused by the Serbian army. I guess in this case the goal would be to alleviate some of the suffering caused by the U.S. Army. In fairness, of course, the Serbian army didn't cause all the suffering in ex-Yugoslavia, and the U.S. Army isn't causing all the suffering in Iraq and Somalia, but it's certainly part of the problem. For me, currently, I guess my current situation is sort of reversed from what it was back in the 90s. Back then, I was in a position to, have plenty of time to send medications overseas, but I wasn't in such a good position to broadcast my video. Well, now I'm in a situation where I have control over the broadcast and the ability to reach a fairly large number of people, but I don't have the time so much to go out and do this, medical collection.
And the police, what you paid for.
Or at least I could probably say the time is better spent creating videos and media about the great things that you are doing. So it may just be that this is another idea for me to bounce off of all of you and let one or more of you take it and run with it if you like it. It's occurred to me you could do a lot of good probably anywhere in the United States just by making sure that surplus medicines don't get thrown away. At some point the U.S. may be in a situation that is just as dire and poverty-filled as Bosnia's situation was. Sorry for the grammar there. But, I mean, if you look at the previous situations where government spending got out of control, fiat money crashed, there was probably a shortage of medications, and probably any surplus medicines that were lying around were used up, even if they were a few months out of date. One physician told me that in the old days, really even relatively recently, like in, I guess, the 70s, they didn't even put expiration dates on medications. So if you could just get hospitals or charities to stockpile their medications for use in an emergency rather than throwing them away, that might be of great help to the country when the spit hits the fan. It would help government worker and liberty activist alike. medications that were stacking up, potentially outbound for Iraq or Somalia would also serve the same purpose. Anyway, if this were the kind of thing that is still legal and that you wanted to pursue, I don't know exactly where you would start, but again, what worked best for me was going to, I guess it was a Catholic charity medical clinic in Wichita that was able to provide me with just, they had piles of medication that they didn't want to have to throw away, and they were thrilled to be able to give it to me. There are probably some clinics like that in in New Hampshire that are in a similar situation. Probably the thing to do would be to find some place to send it first, and then approach the charity. Like so many other things, it's something I'm considering getting involved in addition to the Ridley Report. I just haven't really decided what additional project I want to undertake. I got so many different things I'm looking at right now. I do know that I don't want to just do videos, but doing the videos at least gives me the opportunity to mention some of the other humanitarian operations that we could undertake, along with the other liberty activism that we could undertake. Certainly this was the most effective thing I've ever done in a humanitarian context. It was not heroic, but it was extremely efficient.
This program is brought to you by freekeen.com. Freekeen.com features audio, video, and blogs chronicling the transition to a voluntary society. Freekeen.com also has comments and discussion forums so you can be heard. Freekeen.com.